Hello, and welcome to our webinar, New Homes, New Stories, an Illustrator panel about home and family. I'm Sarah Hunter, Books for Youth editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Also, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned above. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Tracy Subisak, illustrator of AMAH FARAWAY, Zahra Marwan, author and illustrator of Where the Butterflies Fill the Sky, a story of immigration, family, and finding a home, and Frank Morrison, author and illustrator of Kick Push. We'll begin the program with a read-along from each panelist, and then we will move to the Q&A portion of the program. First, we will hear from Tracy Subisak. Tracy can't stop thinking about being back in Taipei, eating youtiao and doujiang with her ama and mama. Tracy is the daughter of a Taiwanese mother and Polish-American father. She lived in Taipei for a bit as an adult and saw her ama every week, ate delicious night market snacks, and enjoyed every detail of a beautiful Taiwan. She is the author-illustrator of Jenny May is Sad and has illustrated books including the award-winning Sean Loves Sharks by Curtis Manley and Wood Wire Wings by Kirsten Larson. Visit her online at tracysubisak.com. Thank you for joining us, Tracy.
Hello, thanks for having me. AMAH FARAWAY. It was time for a visit. Kylie squirmed. We can eat yummy new foods. We can go to pretty new places. We can have an adventure. And we get to see AMAH. It'll be so fun. 100 butterflies took flight in Kylie's belly. Kylie and AMAH didn't visit each other often enough. Every Saturday, they connected by computer. AMAH told stories to Kylie. AMAH sang songs to Kylie. AMAH showed snacks to Kylie, always speaking simply and slowly. But Kylie jittered and jiggled in her seat. Video chats weren't the same as real life. One lived in Taipei, one lived in San Francisco. Ugh, why do we have to go? It's so far away. When they arrived at the Taipei airport, AMAH. Kylie held tight to Mama. With ears pricked, she listened to AMAH talk. Kylie kind of understood. In AMAH's apartment, everything seemed strange. Yet, the faces were happily familiar. Aunts, uncles, and cousins, actual or not, packed a banquet for Mama and Kylie. 10 12-person tables and over 9 courses of steaming food. Gulp. Kylie ate rice, finally. Taipei Hao Mei. Taipei is so beautiful. AMAH showed her the city she loved. AMAH treated them to Chinese donuts, youtiao, she delighted in. 好吃, yummy. No frosting, no filling, no chocolate. AMAH brought them to the parks she enjoyed. 来玩, come play. Kylie eyed AMAH sideways. AMAH took them shopping at the night market, where she seemed to try and buy everything. 来看看, come see. Everywhere they went, Kylie trailed behind Amma and Mama. It was a brand new day. The day they visited the hot springs, Kylie changed. After she dipped a toe in the water, Amma beckoned. Kylie, lie, come, come. Kylie loved splashing, and the water was warm. Should she? Could she? She could, she should. The water was warm, and Kylie loved splashing. Come, come, lie. Kylie beckons, Amma. After she dipped a toe in the water, Kylie changed. The day they visited the hot springs, it was a brand new day. Amma and Mama trailed behind Kylie everywhere they went. Come see, 来看看. She seemed to try and buy everything at the night market where Amma took them shopping. Come play, 来玩. Kylie eyed Amma sideways. She enjoyed the parks Amma brought them to. No frosting, no filling, no chocolate. Yummy, 好吃. She delighted in the Chinese donuts, yo tiao, Amma treated them to. She loved the city Amma showed her. Taipei is so beautiful. Taipei hao mei. Finally, Kylie ate rice, gulp, and over 9 courses of steaming food. 10, 12-person tables, aunts, uncles, and cousins, actual or not, packed a banquet for Mama and Kylie. The faces were happily familiar, yet in Amma's apartment, everything seemed strange. Kylie kind of understood. Ears pricked, she listened to Amma talk with Mama. Kylie held tight to Amma when they arrived at the Taipei airport. It's so far away. Why do we have to go? Kylie held tight to Amma when they arrived at the Taipei airport. Yeah. It's so far away. Why do we have to go? They connected by a computer every Saturday. Kylie and Amma didn't visit each other often enough. 100 butterflies took flight in Kylie's belly. It'll be so fun. We get to see Amma, and we can have an adventure. We can go to pretty new places. We can eat yummy new foods. Kylie squirmed. It was time for a visit.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I really love how this narrative loops back on itself in that mirrored poem. It's very cool. It's a really fun way to tell a story about going and coming back and draw some really interesting parallels between the experiences. Next up, we're going to hear another story that draws interesting parallels between places from Zahra Marwan. Zahra grew up in 2 deserts, one close to the sea in Kuwait, the other close to the mountains in New Mexico. She is a fine artist who exhibits extensively and who has won international awards and fellowships, including the SCBWI Mentorship Award. She studied the visual arts in France and currently lives in Bareilles neighborhood of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Take it away, Zahra.
Thank you. Where Butterflies Fill the Sky, a story of immigration, family, and finding home. To my parents, who should have never had to leave, who gave us everything they could. From the desert to the sea, this is my home, where 100 butterflies are always in the sky. Pigeons are kept and loved, boats sail the calm sea. Mama is on the shore, my aunties drink their tea. Baba swims in the open water, his sister takes the boat out to sea. Me and my brothers are in our own world. This is where I sleep, where my ancestors live and are always watching. My aunties hold me close. They try to protect me the only way they know how. People say we don't belong here. We have to leave our home. Baba tells me there is magic in the place we'll go. I don't want to leave. Mama says it will be better for us. I say my goodbyes without knowing why and travel far, far away to a new place where each day feels like a year, where no one speaks like me. Are my ancestors still watching? Baba walks in the river and Mama sits under the cottonwood tree. My brothers are in their own world. We hear a noise and follow it. It's the music of a guitarón. People dance, they are happy, and when we look up, 100 balloons fill the sky. I'm so different from everyone here, but these new people show me I belong. My family sends reminders that they are thinking of me. And I tell them that I'm thinking of them too, that I miss them and hope we can be together again. That in this new place of high desert, I have found a home.
Thank you so much, Zara. That was really beautiful. I know a lot of kids will be able to relate to the experience of getting used to a new, unfamiliar place. And that's certainly the case for the main character of the book we're going to hear about next, from Frank Morrison. Frank works as a fine artist and is the award-winning illustrator of many books for children, including Respect, Aretha Franklin, The Queen of Soul, for which he won the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award, Our Children Can Soar, winner of the NAACP Image Award, and Jazzy Miss Mozetta, for which he won the Coretta King John Steptoe New Talent Award. Frank lives in Atlanta, Georgia with his wife and their 5 children. Thank you for joining us, Frank.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Or is it good afternoon? My name is Frank Morrison, and I'm going to read you guys Kick Push. So get ready. It's a skateboarding book. Put your helmets on. There we go. To my sons and daughters who showed me how to, to skate, even though I fell off a cliff doing it. Anyway, meet Ivan, a kick-flipping big rail king. He's been grinding the streets with his moves so big, his friends call him Epic. Isn't that a name? I wish I could be called Epic. I'll stick to the strip, though. I'll stick to the story. A new day in his neighborhood, no sweat. These streets might be different, but Epic's tricks are the same. Go ahead, Epic. Skating around. Look at this graffiti on this page. My gosh, did I do this? Oh, I think I did. Kick, push, swish. He's off to find a new crew. Fresh off a backside kick flip, push fakie, landed it. Kick, put, flip, epic tray flip pass at comic book stores. And then, I love comic books. So you guys love comic books? I'm sorry. I know I got to stick to this. Kick, put, flop, or plop. At this point, what is gnarly tricks without companions to cheer him on? Why be epic if no one can see? Why be epic if no one can see? Goodness. What's going on, Epic? Dad wants to know. Throwing down his psycho big tricks without buddies is whack. Epic says, the board isn't getting me anywhere. It's not getting me anywhere, Dad. You never know. You never land a trick on the first try, Epic. Keep an open mind and you'll find new friends. Kick, push, good night. Epic dragged himself into the bed, then counted backside flips to fall asleep. Goodness gracious, what a page. Bright and cheerful, Epic decided to try to fit in with the neighborhood kids. First, he tried football. Ouch! Anybody watching the game this week? Isn't it football? I'm sorry, you got it. All right, you can't answer me. Soccer was just as painful. Basketball? Slamming, but not in a good way. Help! Oh, gosh, I love this page. This happens to me often. Anyway, defeated, dazed, and confused and drenched, Epic was not feeling it. Feeling wet, anything. Okay. Epic told his parents about one painful moment after the other. Sugar? That's my sugar. That sound right? Okay. Sugar, how about you run down to the bodega and get, well, let me just read it the right way. I can't, my voice is not working here. Sugar, why don't you run down to the bodega and get yourself a treat, said Mom. How about one of those rides? Asked his dad. You don't need this. How about one more ride? Okay. Here we go. This is a cool page right here. This reminds me when I was going down that hill before I hit those boulders. Epic flew past his dad. Epic flipped his board on the banister, slid down the sidewalk, then disappeared down the block. Kick, push, kick, push. He did a backside flaky into the fire hydrant. Kick, push, flip, landed it. Uh-oh, we in a little bit of zone here. Okay. Epic wove and weaved down the sidewalk, past the neighborhood, past the pickup game. That's a nice little hoop over there. That just got me some crates. Bounce, clunk, clunk, bounce, clunk, kick, push, whoosh. Uh-oh, here comes the dancing. Here comes the dancing. You ready? Kick, push, swim, past Tiffany's house, kick flipping while the girls did their slide stepping. Kick, push, whoosh. Here we go. Bodega is in sight. With the baby in sight, Epic spotted a rail bigger than anyone he ever attempted. Kick, push, clang. Did he make it? I think so. A Mongo foot then flipped into a switch dance, took his breath and to crash the stairs into a 50-50 grind. Listen to all this, my goodness. I wrote all this, goodness. And landed in front of the fly-by barbershop. I like to say no sweat. Like I said, no sweat. Oh, look at all these kids. Where they come from? Epic hopped inside the bodega and grabbed his favorite snacks. Mine is a quarter water. I used to drink quarter waters all the time. Here's, those are your friends? Asked the clerk. Sick moves, bro. We saw you. We feel you. Let's get a sesh on, said Epic. Look at these kids going away. Smile me when I was in. Anyway, let's keep to the strip. Kick, push, kick. Away they went. He was off. Little smiley face on the bag. Uh-oh, little popcorn. Okay, all right. Back home, they started a gnarly game of skate. Back and forth they went until the sun went down. The neighborhood new crew, and even some sweet tricks. No doubt, being you is pretty epic, isn't it though? This being you, being epic. I guess that's it. The end.
Thank you so much, Frank. It was really nice to hear all of your books. And now I would invite you all to turn on your cameras and unmute yourself so that we can move on to the panel portion of the webinar. I'll turn on my video too. I'll spare.
Hey.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for sharing those with us. We don't often do read alouds on webinars, but I really like them. I think it's really nice to just hear the picture book directly from the creators. It's wonderful. So we're going to ask a series of questions, and please ask each other questions if you have them. If you want to chime up about somebody else's point, that would be lovely. So we'll start more generally. What inspired your artwork for these stories? And Zara, why don't we start with you on this one, if that's okay?
Sure. For me personally, my very gossipy, loving aunts, for starters. The flamingos that naturally come to Kuwait in the wintertime. The traditional brass teapots and the bureaucrats that hide inside of them. And of course, my deep love of home and statelessness, the most depressive situation.
Tracy, how about you? What inspired your artwork for AMAH FARAWAY?
Well, I would say definitely Taiwan in general, the location, in combination with the mediums that I tend to use. I use Chinese brushes a lot. So this is an example. This is a big one. That I can't get off the hook. Here's a big one. So you can get really thick and thin brush strokes with this. And I really wanted to incorporate a lot of shapes and utilize this a lot more in this book, especially since that's where I've learned how to use this tool is in Taiwan. But like the bustle of Taiwan and the peace that is also there, if you notice like the difference between the park scenes, a lot of lush green versus the night market is just chaotic, and there's so much to take in. So those are just a couple of things that inspired me.
Cool. Frank, you're up next. What inspired your artwork for Kick Push?
For Kick Push?
Yes.
My kids, my children, my kids, they watching them grow up and experiment in different things and seeing them take on skateboarding. I was so inspired by it, and seeing all the kids of all nationalities come to the house surfing, I think they call it. So you don't know who's going to, we wake up, you got to make sure your clothes is on because you don't know who's downstairs on your couch.
And would you say that like the motion of skateboarding influenced your artwork at all? Because it has so much dynamic movement to it. That was one thing I really noticed when reading yours.
About that, I painted a picture years ago. It's called The Daily Grind, and I might have painted it in like 2001. And I looked at that one, and it's a bunch of movement going on. I'm attracted to mannerism, and so anything that has a juxtaposition of the body, I love that. And I think that when skateboarding, I just fall flat, but everyone else seems to be able to do moves and have their arms and have a style to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tracy, I'm really intrigued by the notion of a particular medium inspiring your artwork. I think that's really cool. I don't think anybody has answered this question like that before for me, so that's really neat.
I mean, if I'm honest, it's like I've always looked at artists like Frank and Zara, and I'm like, oh, I want to create just like that. But in the end, I do what I can, and I have a lot of practice in with Chinese brushes, and I've learned to just accept, that where the medium will take me, and that usually tells me how the artwork is gonna go. I don't know if you two have that experience as well, but.
Zara, does that hold true for you too? That the medium takes you in a direction?
Sometimes I wish my watercolors and ink would do what exactly that I want them to do. But I'm usually happy with the outcome of it. Yeah.
Cool. So next I want to get a little bit specific and ask about how color has informed your books. And Tracy, you gave us a little teeny sneak peek of this earlier. I wonder if you could start this conversation off with that.
So I used to work in design, so I have a very methodical way of doing this. Let me share my screen. So what I usually do is for any book, I go into Pinterest and I start to select images that remind me of what I feel like the book is going to look like. So I'll take out like a ton of images, and then I'll cater it a little bit more and pull them into Illustrator or Photoshop file. And I'll just take a look, and I'll notice the colors that are popping out. So here you can see a lot of this deeper blue with hints of purple in it. And these are some scenes at the bottom of life, like the street scenes and night market scenes. And it's, there's a lot of contrast, and the reds really pop out, and the yellows of the lights. And then there's just any area on the street, the green is really prominent. So those three colors were kind of the prize colors of the book. And I'll just color pick, and I'll make this this crazy color palette. And usually, I don't use all those colors, but let me stop sharing. But then I go to the art store, or I go to my art area of my studio, and I use these Gansai Tombi, which is like Japanese watercolors, and they're just little palettes. So I pulled together, you know, a set. This isn't quite this right set for the book, but I'll just set out colors that I'm set to use. And I'll do the same with these. I don't know if anyone likes crayons, but these Neocolor 2 pastels are water soluble and they're so creamy. But I'll just choose like a number of colors, and then I'll start painting. And then eventually the color palette starts to form itself on these plates. This is my skin tone color palette. But this is like the nature scenes and like,
oh, that's so cool.
Scenes. And these are like more of the daytime scenes. So you can
That's
kind
awesome.
of see where there's a reflection in the beginning of thinking about color to the end.
Neat.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Frank, do you want to follow that up? How do you use color for your art?
How do you follow that up? I can't. I call it the Nas effect. I have one of my sons, he's in SCAD, and he's Nas, and Nas can kick my butt on color. And I don't know where he gets these colors from. And so what I do is whenever I'm putting a page together, I go through all the magazines that I can find, and I find until I can get a color palette that I think matches. I try not to use blue or for blue jeans if I can get away with it. I try to find another color for blue jeans, trying to find another color than like what I'm wearing right now. I think my wife picked this out. This is like, I think it makes me look soft. But either way, I try to find different colors that will make the child be like, oh wow, get out of here. I never thought of that. Okay, this should keep the kids involved in it. So my color palette, it comes from anywhere. To be honest with you, every page I try to make look different than the last.
Neat. Zara, how about you? Tell us about color in your book.
Yeah. There's a joke in my family that when we left Kuwait and we landed in New Mexico, the family was shocked that we never left. So, the thing is, I thought of the 2 desert climates, and of course, Kuwait has the sea and its water is Mediterranean. So it's a very bright turquoise that varies between greens and blues. And New Mexico has the Sandia Mountains, which in Spanish means watermelon, and they turn bright pink every evening. Women wear a lot of black. I mean, even as babies, my mom put eyeliner on us to protect us from the sun. So I guess like Tracy, I have like 6 bottles of black ink right next to me. I don't know why. Yeah. So I really depend on my black and white inks.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that in your book, like the similarity in like the sandy tones between Kuwait and New Mexico was really striking. And I like how that sort of became a familiar backdrop for like 2 different atmospheres, which was really neat.
Mesa in New Mexico is really colorful though, unlike Kuwait.
Yeah. Neat. Okay, so a lot of you all have like particular elements to your illustrations that help cultivate a strong sense of place. So were there any elements that you knew you had to include in the pictures for these books, and what did those signify for you? Frank, I'll start with you for this one.
All right. I incorporate a lot of if it's urban scenes, always try to incorporate graffiti in it, because I still write graffiti. I'm still crew and all that. We go out and we do permission walls. So so I always try to incorporate that so I can let other writers know that they can illustrate. There's other jobs out there. So it's like a little beacon I put in there. I also try to make sure my books are diverse. So I have a multicultural people in the book. I want everyone to be represented in the book. It's weird because on this page here, this guy literally came to my house. I swear he looked exactly like him. He was doing some work at my house. And I was like, wow, I painted you. And so I'd like for everyone to be able to see themselves in the book. And And basically I try to stay true to whatever the neighborhood is. You know, I try to make sure everything, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I wondered whether all the people in your book were based on actual people in your life, because they have like a really strong portraiture quality to them, in your illustrations, and I was curious about whether they were all real people.
Not make them up.
Well, you had me fooled. Zara, why don't we talk to you next about this one? What were some essential elements, and what do they signify for you?
Yeah. My very old aunt lives with a gray parrot who she's always bickering with. So he's with her throughout the book. On one page, I have a picture of my uncle who died a soldier for Kuwait as a stateless person, but was claimed as a Kuwaiti citizen. So a tiny glimpse of injustice, and his picture, which is still hanging. And what else? I have fish, a lot of fish. Kuwait has an ancient seafaring history that even the Mesopotamian deities are surrounded by fish. And 2 bulls from the ancient Greek civilization that was in Kuwait.
Yeah. And you mentioned in your author's note that you do see hundreds of butterflies in Kuwait because of the migration. Can you tell us a little bit about how it felt to notice the similarity between the butterflies and the balloons? Did that come first, or did that come to you as you were making the art?
It came to me actually. So my mother lives in Kuwait, and I had to make an emergency trip home. And that spring in particular, there was just hundreds of butterflies in the sky. So it was a really dark and hard time for me personally, but every time I'd look up, there were butterflies in the sky. My last trip home, I showed it to a Kuwaiti scholar, and he said, no, that's not Kuwait. So I hope Kuwaitis, well, don't tell Kuwaitis I said that there are hundreds of butterflies in the sky. And then New Mexico's autumn sky is full of hot air balloons. So it is just as magical that whatever is happening day to day, and you look up when it's getting cold and there are hot air balloons.
I think it's just such a lovely pair of images to me. I really like it. And Tracy, how about you? Tell us about some essential elements and what they signify for you.
So I miss Taiwan. I think a lot of Taiwanese will say if they're like they want to go to back to Taiwan, it's because they want to eat. So like the first thing, first of all, I love the relationship that Kylie has with AMAH and her mom. Like the whole bond that they have throughout the book is like so beautiful. But I have to be honest that I first thought about the food and the menu. So I even talked, my best friend is from Taiwan, so I would talk with her like every day and be like, what should the menu be for the banquets, and what should they be eating, and what will the mom be eating, because she's eating during the whole thing, or she's talking about what she's going to eat. So the banquet where you all get together and the whole thing you bond over is food. And having the person serving food at their food carts and banquet food. This is actually one of the meals in the banquet. And of course, bubble tea originated in Taiwan, if you did not know. But yeah, I would say I could keep talking, because there's, every place that they go to is a place that's dear in my heart. So like the hot springs, I have beautiful memories of like looking up at the mountains and sitting around. Their elders are like slapping their backs, and they're like, sit down in the water. You can't just dangle your feet in the water, and the whole families who come for the weekends. So there's just so many details in there that's so personal.
One question that I thought about sending, but didn't, I'm going to ask it anyway now. I'm really curious about how nostalgia for these places factored into your depictions of them. I mean, you touched on that a little bit, Tracy, and that you have like a really strong sense of what it's like to be there. But I wonder if you considered like what nostalgia meant for you in making these books. Do you want to, I know I'm like throwing this out to you out of the blue. You're prepared with all the rest of them, but I'm asking anyway. So
that's a great question. I mean, the whole book is nostalgia, and also just like, you know, my mom passed away 5 years ago, so like it was just like a huge memorial to work on this book, and having like these vivid memories of when I would go with her to visit my Waipo, which is the Chinese word for AMAH. So there's like literal pictures of us three like holding arms and like walking around. But I think it's also comes back to the medium, like this, for example, like these brush strokes here, it's kind of like, it's not super clear, if that makes sense, but the vivid memory is the three of us. So I remember like the light shining through the trees in this like beautiful, huge park in the middle of the city, and the birds, and there's like bird sanctuary in the middle of the park, and it's just like there's all these so noisy. I mean, that's the only nature noise in there. But the vivid parts are the connections that we have with our family, and then everything else is kind of like, it's still there, but we don't remember all the details of it.
So Zara, obviously when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking a lot about your book too, because you're talking about a place that you remember from your childhood. Did you think about nostalgia a lot when you were writing your book?
I feel like a walking embodiment of nostalgia, even when I'm in Kuwait now. Like, I feel extracted, no matter how much I feel like I belong and at home in New Mexico and welcomed by like the Hispanic community or New Mexicans in general. There's always the question in the back of my head of what happened, like why weren't we allowed to just belong in our home? Like, and I wish I could blame another group of people, but it's like people who look like me and are exactly like me and speak the same language who made it clear that we don't belong. Even though it was our home.
Well, Frank, obviously you're not really writing in the same, or like making art in the same sort of way. Like I didn't think about nostalgia as much as with your book as with Tracy's and Zara's, but I wonder if you think about it too, because there was one moment when I did think about nostalgia, and on Epic Skateboard, there was like that S that we drew all the time in the 90s on our school papers.
Yes.
And I wonder if you think about nostalgia for your own childhood when you are making illustrations inspired by your own children.
Well, I try to, like the S was intentional. And I knew we drew it. Those two lines and the triangle, you know. I knew that's something that the adults could relate to. We were drawing, so I always try to throw little Easter eggs in there. But the nostalgia that I'm thinking of, honestly, was when I lived in Jersey. I grew up in Jersey, and I met my wife. I married my wife, who moved to Brooklyn, and we started letting our children go to the store, and without us, they would have their other little friends or their cousins would come and take them to the store. And the boys, you're like, oh, but my little daughter, my little daughter Naya at that time, now they were taking her to the store. And it just reminded me when I'm looking at him, he's going to the store, the bodega, which is only on the corner. But it just reminds me of like, wow, you know what? We were so, as parents, you're like, you're not gonna be out of my sight. But then you get in New York and it's like everyone is pretty much your family on that block anyway. So you're all together, and so they're just as safe. So it's kind of like letting go and trusting family. And that's what I did when I was in Brooklyn. And that's what I think, because Ivan is going to the store by himself. Now, nowadays, you see a kid walking up the block by themselves, like, where's his parents at? Is he okay? In New York, it's pretty much everyone does that all day long anyway, and so it's just more freedom of movement out there. And I think that's what this book reminds me of. That's a nostalgic moment.
Yeah, cool. So I'm curious about all of your very individual art styles. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what has influenced your art style over the years. And Frank, you mentioned this a little bit in the author's note or the illustrator's note in your book about mannerism. Can you talk a little bit about how that has influenced your art style?
I grew up, mannerism is, if anyone knows, there's two artists I grew up watching, or three artists. It was Good Times, was JJ from Good Times. My mother had Annie Lee, and I loved Thomas Hart Benton growing up. And then graffiti. And so I try to incorporate all of that. Mannerism is basically exaggerating the form to make it look like what you want. Like I'm drawing this little kid right now while I was listening to you guys. So I'm drawing this guy, right? I don't know if you can see that. But instead of having a hand, he has a spray can. Like it's a little spray, right? And so, but his body is making this form. You just go make an X and then fill in the blank, basically. So you make it fit the form that you like. It may not, now if you take them apart, it probably, I don't know how bones will work in his body, but eventually, it does work out. Like Goya would use mannerism, and I think there was another artist, Michelangelo, and just to name a few. And I just kept that tradition going, just exaggerating the form to fit the character. Now, I have to say this about watercolors. They hate me. They're in my drawer over there. They stay away from me. I stay away from them. Kudos to you guys for using watercolor. Goodness.
Can I ask, Frank, what medium do you use?
I use oil and spray paint. And I just throw the spray paint. I don't have to put the spray paint in, but I just do it to be rebellious. Why not?
Zara, tell us a little bit about the influence on your art style.
Yeah, I really love the tradition of Persian miniatures, the flat imagery of them.
Yes.
I like to incorporate that a lot in my compositions where there are lots of things going on and they don't really make sense in perspective. I also really love jet art and all the florals they introduce. And again, the flat imagery and the golds and yellows of Byzantine art. And the French group, they called themselves Les Nebis, which comes from the Arabic, the prophets. I guess they had a very high opinion of themselves. They were just imitating Japanese art. So also flat imagery, but in like pastelish colors.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see the influence of the Persian miniatures in your art. That's really neat. And Tracy, how about you? What influences your art style? You talked a little bit about it already, but I wonder if you could talk about it some more. Sorry, my cat is like biting my ankles and I'm trying to scratch her ear so she'll stop biting me.
Good old cats. I would say, so yeah, I talked about the Chinese brush being like a huge influence. I actually used to be a lot more tight with my artwork. And it was mostly out of fear that I would mess up. So I used to do, I think for my first 4 books, I did like a ink or pencil work, and then scanned it in, and then I painted digitally. And there is like power and not power in the undo button. You can just like rework forever and stay in the lines and just really keep it a lot tighter. And starting with Jenny May is Sad is when I was just like, you know what, there's beauty in letting the materials do what they're gonna do, and kind of letting go a little bit. So I started that with Jenny May, and then I took it a step further with AMAH FARAWAY, and just letting the materials speak for itself. I think that's just my journey is just like learning to let go.
Yeah.
And know that there's probably like a little bit more emotion showing when I can trust myself.
Yeah.
And trust, I mean, watercolor is crazy. I agree. It is just like you have to breathe and just be like, on paper, just let it make its shape, make whatever color is going to happen. And that's the same with inking. With this, I chose a little bit more, was a little pickier with where I put my line. I used to really rely heavily on line. So it's, yeah, I think it's always going to evolve for me in a good way.
Yeah, my mom is an artist sometimes, and her motto is use your mistakes, and she like writes it all over her studio. It was the thing that she instilled in us when we were kids about our own creative projects. Like, just because you messed up a line or you think you messed up a line doesn't mean you have to stop and start over. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to do a little lightning round. So my last question for all of you is, how has working on any of these illustrations helped you see these places that you're depicting in a new light? And Zara, can we start with you on this one?
Sure. So throughout the pandemic is when I worked on most of the art for this book here in my apartment. Table without the beautiful things. So I was lucky that Kuwait finally opened its borders in December to non-citizens, and I was able to go home to see my mom.
Oh, wow.
Family. Yeah. And walking up to my aunt's entryway and seeing all the plants, it almost felt like walking into a myth or a nostalgic myth. Like you were saying.
Tracy, how about you? How has working on these illustrations helped you see these places in a new light?
Oh my
If at all.
gosh. I wish I could go back. I'm waiting for Taiwan to open its borders to non-citizens as well. So I'm not really sure because I haven't been back. I haven't been able to go back. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have an answer.
That's okay.
I think it's still remaining in that nostalgic light until I go back and I just like start drooling when I think about the food.
It made you hungry. That's what it made you do.
Yeah.
And Frank, how about you? Tell us how working on these illustrations has helped you see those places in a new light, if at all.
I appreciate them more. I live in Atlanta, and I'm looking out my window at trees and a fence. And so there's no people walking. There's just a green fence. Every once in a while we get an owl that looks in at me. But you appreciate people, community. I have traditions now when we go back to Brooklyn or we go back to New York. We have to be tourists for the first 2 days. To do all the we're acting like we don't even, like we've never been there before. We're just walking around, getting in all our little things that we miss over the years. And like I said, we haven't been back in maybe like 3 years. I haven't been up. So I can't wait to taste, the pizza. We don't have bakeries down here in Atlanta. We don't have Italian bakeries. So it's like you're like for the rainbow cookies, or you're looking for your little, things you're used to getting, and you're like, okay, I don't need a rainbow cookie in a box in a package. It comes, you gotta order it like that. I need that. Give me 5 of those, a pound of that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need to unwrap it. So it's like little things like that, and then being able to see the culture. See, like there's a lot of street art now, and York, so that's opened up, and a lot of graffiti. So it's weird because there's a bucket list in New York. You can go on a tour, and so we want to do that next time, just to be able to see things that we wouldn't. If you live there all the time, you're like, oh, we didn't even go to the rides. We lived in Coney Island. Like, go to the rides. It's annoying, especially in the summertime. You're trying to get around everybody. Like, what are you doing? Is this like? So now it's like we'll go back to the park, get on the rides. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so let me explain lightning. Oh, do you have something else to say? Sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I just thought of an answer.
Sure.
Okay.
I think that what's changed for me, or what from working on this book, is especially during the pandemic, I've had I guess right before the pandemic hit, I had a thirst to like be more involved with the Taiwanese community here. And that, like, I think it coming out now and things sort of getting better, I don't know.
Yeah.
That just made me like really reinforce that feeling and just find little nuggets of connection wherever I can. In the States, while I can, until I can go back. You know, you can find connection wherever you are. You just have to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so here's how lightning round works. I will ask a question. I will give you each a chance to answer very quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next question. So, what's your biggest influence that's not a book, Tracy?
My mom.
Your mom, Zara.
Vibrant social life of Kuwaitis.
Frank.
Internet.
It's a very honest answer.
Look at the trees.
All right. What is an art medium you wish you could be better at? Frank, we're going to start with you.
I hate watercolor. It hates me. I would like to say it. Maybe gouache. I'll go with gouache.
Gouache. Zara.
I hate oil paints. No. I wish I was better at fine art painting.
And Tracy, you're last.
I also wish I was better at watercolor.
I can master it. It drives you nuts.
Yeah, it does.
And you think you're doing it well until you look back like, what is this? It's all mine.
Okay, what is an art tool that you can never live without? Zara, you first.
India ink.
India ink. Tracy.
Chinese brush.
Chinese brushes. Frank.
I don't know. Yeah, I use a spray paint.
Spray paint. Okay, last one. What was the picture book that made you want to be an illustrator? Frank.
What the heck?
Did we come back?
Someone just called me and said, Frank, can you illustrate this? my buddies, Kadir and Brian, they were doing book illustration, and I just like, oh wow, I want to go out and do it. So I have to say one of their books.
Yeah. Okay, Tracy, you're next.
That is, I mean, probably Shel Silverstein, one of his books. Yeah, so weird.
Yes.
Up my alley.
Yeah. And Zara, how about you?
This one was really hard. I thought maybe Persepolis by Mara Jane.
Yes.
But I also really loved French picture books while I was studying over there. But nothing in particular. I like their weird art.
Weird art. I love weird art.
It's really abstract for kids.
Yeah. Well, thanks to all of you. That was really fun. That I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today, but it was so wonderful to speak with you. On Monday, all attendees will receive an email containing links to the certificate of completion and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, please be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Not yet a subscriber? Pair the print reading experience with the convenience of online access at booklistonline.com and lock in print, online, digital, and archive access by taking advantage of the special webinar offer to get Booklist for only $75. Patron-friendly, librarian-approved, and free with a Booklist subscription, Booklist Reader, Booklist's new digital-only magazine highlighting diverse readers' advisory recommendations for all ages, has arrived. To see and share the latest issue, visit booklistonline.com/reader-issues. Thank you again for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our wonderful panelists and their lively conversation, and to our sponsor, Bloomsbury Children's Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.